And Putin told me it was years that he didn't speak to anybody from the White House. I mean, you saw that when he got off his plane, I got off my plane. There's a warmth there that you can't, there's a decent feeling. And it's a good thing, not a bad thing. People would say, oh, that's such a terrible thing.
That was this morning, President Trump describing his relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The dynamic between the two leaders is at the very core of President Trump's push for a peace deal, even as Russia continues its daily deadly attacks on Ukraine. I'm joined now by Leon Panetta, former defense secretary and CIA director under President Obama. Secretary Panetta, it's so good to see you. I want you to start by picking up on President Trump's comments, talking about the warm relationship he has with Vladimir Putin. What's your take on that and how it does play into what President Trump is trying to achieve?
Well, look, I think it's not a bad thing to have relationships with key leaders around the world. It's probably not a bad idea to even have a good relationship with an adversary. But the real issue, as always, is whether or not that results in real progress and results in really trying to achieve the goals that you're after. Because when you're dealing with Putin, it isn't just about pretty please. It's not about having a good relationship. It's about having to bargain with somebody who is not trustworthy and who has a set of goals that he wants to achieve. And your ability to basically make clear to that kind of individual that he cannot have his way is very important as to whether or not any progress is achieved. And I'm afraid that's what's missing from this relationship.
Presumably there are still assessments from the intelligence community about what Vladimir Putin really wants here, what his intent is. Have you seen any indication that President Trump is heeding those assessments as he tries to find a peace deal?
Well, I wish he would. Frankly, one of my concerns about all of these meetings is just how much preparation is actually going into these meetings in order to try to achieve some conclusion. And if all you're doing is meeting to be meeting and not really knowing where you're headed, the chances are Putin's going to succeed here in just playing for time. I think it's very important if you're going to deal with somebody like Putin that you have to be credible. And I think the president has hurt himself on his credibility here. He said he wanted a ceasefire. He didn't get it. He says he was going to implement sanctions. That didn't happen. He said if he didn't get what he wanted, there was going to be severe consequences. That has not happened. And when the president keeps backing off from the threats that are made, then it clearly undermines your credibility. Look, the only thing a president has, really, when it comes to power, is the power of his word and whether or not he's going to stand by it. And if that's under question, then it really does undermine your ability to try to get anybody to do anything.
So basically what you're saying is that by, these are my words, not yours, crying wolf on all of these threats that President Trump put out there leading up to the Alaska summit. I say crying wolf because he didn't get what he said he wanted, and then he didn't follow through on his threats, that Vladimir Putin isn't taking him seriously? I mean, how would you add to what you just said?
Yep. I think the problem is that he essentially is capitulating to Putin, and Putin understands that. And as a result of that, Putin has no incentive to really come forward. Look, I think the only way that you get Putin to get serious about negotiations is if you clearly say to Putin, you are not going to win this war. I mean, the fact that Putin said he wants to eliminate the root causes of the war, well, the root cause of the war was his invasion of Ukraine because he thought it was part of Russia. If you're going to eliminate the root cause of the war, Putin wins. What President Trump has to do is to look Putin in the eye and say, my friend, you are not going to win this war. And the way you basically force that issue is to, in fact, put sanctions on. It's to give the weapons that Ukraine needs in order to fight this war, because that's the kind of action that Putin understands. And when he realizes that he's not going to be able to win this war, that he's not going to be able to get Trump to somehow cut a deal for him, that's when we begin to move towards some kind of long-term peace.
Yeah, and so far, the way that President Trump is clearly dealing with Putin is by playing his game, suggesting that the root causes have something to do with Ukraine or even the U.S. On that note, I do want to talk about something we've been hearing a lot more from the president and his spokespeople, repeatedly blaming the predecessors here in the United States, his presidential predecessors. Listen to what the press secretary Caroline Leavitt said just this afternoon.
Under George W. Bush, Russia invaded Georgia. Under Barack Obama, Russia took Crimea. Under Joe Biden, Russia invaded Ukraine. But under President Trump, Russia did not invade nor take anything. President Trump is the only president this century, Republican or Democrat, who has held Russia in check and ensured peace in Europe.
I want to make clear you left the Obama administration before Russia invaded Ukraine, Crimea to be specific, in 2014. But broadly, what do you make of those claims?
You know, I think it's time for President Trump to recognize that he's president of the United States and has to accept responsibility for what's happening and stop blaming others. I think that's really a sign of weakness when you start blaming others for the reality of the issues that you're confronting in your administration. These are Trump's issues now. He said he would end the war in Ukraine the day after he was inaugurated. That did not happen. He said he would end the war in Gaza. That did not happen. The reality is that the conflicts that are taking place now in a very dangerous world that we live in are now the responsibility of Donald Trump. Not past presidents, not history, but Donald Trump.
Leon Panetta, former defense secretary, CIA director, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it, sir.
Good to be with you, Dan.